Good morning, good afternoon, internet world. This is our podcast. I'm your host, Marlon Anthony, here for another exciting episode. Today, we are going to get right into mental health. I've got my brother, and I'll let him do his own introduction. I'm going to go ahead and preface it for you, but Dr. Ezekiel Peebles. Zeke, welcome to the show. Tell us about who you are, what you do, and just give us a little insight on who you are as a person.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. As you said, I go by the name Zeke for short, probably the most, second most important Zeke in the state of Ohio after Ezekiel Elliott. But anyone that knows Ezekiel Elliott, at least pre-Ezekiel Elliott, then they will be talking about Ezekiel Peebles. But I'm originally from D.C., came here in the late 90s and have been in Ohio ever since. So when you give that intro of, Dr. Ezekiel Peebles, that's like so far-fetched. I can't even remember when that was even a thing. But yeah, came here to go to the Ohio State University, got my first degree in criminology, specifically juvenile delinquency, and then stuck around, met my lady here, got married and hitched, went back to school to the University of Dayton, keeping it all in Ohio, had my master's in clinical counseling, and then I'm a bit of a glutton for educational punishment. So as he's talking about, Dr. Peebles, I'm in the last few stages of my PhD program back at the Ohio State University in counselor education. So really excited about that. Married, got one son, only child, but been in Ohio for 20 plus years and enjoying it. So I guess I should say I'm an Ohioan for real.
Yeah, you at the same stage I'm at. I'm from Cleveland, and people always be like, man, I thought you was from here. I was like, no, I just been here for so long, and I have so many relationships that people think I'm from here, but I'm from Cleveland. I'm at that same point where it's like, I'm at the halfway point in my life where I spent more than half of my, living and existing on this earth here in Columbus. So I'm gonna still say Cleveland, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about how you got into the mental health space. Being from DC, coming to OSU, the late 90s, mid 90s, the mental health wasn't really a thing that people were just popping up and saying, this is what I'm going to specialize in for my career.
Yeah. No, that's real. It's real interesting when you say that because, again, I didn't even know that I wanted to be a counselor or that I was going to dabble in the mental health space. For all those in my generation, I was on my Theo Huxtable in the sense that I'm just going to drive a bus and be like regular people, maybe, do the mailman thing or whatever. But I'm first generation. So nobody in my family has had at the time graduated from high school. So I was the first to do that. And then you all heard about the educational thing. So you can just check those boxes. But it was really after I got my first degree in doing criminology work, but again, specifically around juvenile delinquency. I was working with young kids that were involved in the court system, caught up and, doing a lot of administrative things, providing support for students. But the one thing that stuck out to me was when I would get in conversation with them and really help them to figure out and how to get unstuck on certain things. And it was very wild to me because, they would find me later in life, sometimes right in the downtown or eastern area. And they would say, oh, Mr. Peebles, man, the things that you told me, the way that you supported me, and that made me feel great. And I thought to myself, maybe there's something more to conversation and the idea of talking with folks. And so that led me to look into counseling as an occupation. And so I chose the University of Dayton for a number of reasons. And so like 3 years later after that, I got my degree in in clinical counseling and started my own practice, Keyy Counseling and Consultation. So it's been a ride of 14 years and still going strong.
So the funny part is, and I'm not sure if you remember this, so Zeke and I are members of the same fraternity. We're alphas. Really the only fraternity, but we'll get to that, another day. And, a big part of being in the brotherhood is you get mentorship, either directly or indirectly. And
that's right.
At the time, I look back on it now, being in college, and there were some things that were being mentored to me that I kind of looked at as like kind of discipline. So you kind of fight it. And then when you see brothers around and you see how successful they are, you see how they are as as professionals and being in the classroom and, being scholars, being family men. I remember seeing Zeke, the University of Dayton program that you were at was housed at Capital University.
That's correct.
So that's where I went to school. So I would be leaving. I went to class, y'all, for the most part, but I would be leaving class or I'd be doing programming in the evenings, and I would see Zeke coming up the stairs over in the Rough Learning Center, and he's getting out of class, and I'm like,
yeah,
this dude is a full adult, got other things going on, and he's still taking care of business. So that's always been of admiration for me, and just something I always think about when you talk about, getting your master's degree. Keyy Counseling. And the reason I want you to one, promotion, we're always going to promote our Black businesses on here, but specifically mental health, it's kind of like very much a minority field. There's very few Black or minority mental health professionals. There's very few Black men. There's even fewer Black men who own their own counseling agency.
Yeah.
Tell us about Keyy Counseling and kind of how that came to be.
Yeah, Keyy Counseling is named after my late brother, Keyshawn D. Lurk, who passed away way before there was universal health care under President Obama at the time. He passed away from cancer. And so we, grew up together, all these different things. And so when I was in the last few semesters at University of Dayton at Capital, I started thinking, what is it that I'm going to do after this? I want to do some type of supplemental thing, have some additional income, because I was working, actually at Ohio State full time. And so the more I was thinking about it, I said, well, I think I want to start this practice, trying to figure out the name. Everybody knew, Keyshawn is Keyy and everything. And I said, I want to do something to pay homage to my brother. And so I named it Keyy Counseling. But really, I will tell you this. I had an arrogant professor who was like, any of you all can get out here, start a private practice. It's not going to be hard. It's going to be a great investment for you and all these things. I really did not like this professor. Like, I felt like they were such a prick or whatever. But he spoke the truth about a lot of things. And so I remember just doing my homework, looking at the state of Ohio. Do I want to go, LLC? Do I want to go group? Like doing all the work that I had to do. And so it was funny, I'll say this as a testimony. And not a lot of people know this. So in the last semester, I had sat for my license, which is what a lot of students don't do. They wait till after they graduate and then they, sit for their license. But I asked the chair of the program, could I sit for the license exam? He said, sure. So he wrote my letter. I sat down and I passed, right? And so I was the only person or one of the few that was graduating with a degree and a license pending. And so I went on the interview track, went to a few places, even the place that I interned, y'all, and none of them gave me an opportunity for a part-time position, none of them. And so it was like 3-4 interviews. And I said to myself, I can hear that professor again. What am I waiting on? Let me just do it myself or whatever. So I launched all the paperwork, did everything I needed to do. So graduated that December. Keyy Counseling was born in February. So yeah, you're talking about like a short period of time. And a lot of it, like most entrepreneurs, I'm hustling, trying to figure out, okay, how do I make this work? How do I make that work? And so it was a real true hustle in the beginning. But it just started out as me and it got as big as about 16 therapists. Right now we have 6, because we're doing some things a little bit different, but it's been a dream, 14 years and going. So I'm excited. I'm delighted, because anytime people run into me, it's typically Keyy Counseling is synonymous with Zeke. And so folks just put that connection together. But I'm blessed, beyond favor. I'm also blessed in the sense that there were a lot of folks who also have private practices out here that we need to support who got their start at Keyy Counseling, and so, it's been great to see the field grow when you say there's not enough, Black males, but not enough brown and Black people in general with private practices. But there's a lot more than it was when I started over 14 years ago.
That's good. I didn't know that story. I didn't know you came right out the gate. And
Yeah.
it's funny, you know, my background partially is in health equity, and we work with a lot of behavioral health organizations. And you are seeing more and more just kind of pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I think they're all doing the right thing? That's a different story for a different day. But I think there's some truth to what your professor said, and you're a testament to that, that it can be done. It's not going to be necessarily easy.
Yeah.
But you can figure it out. And 14 years later, you know, that's proven to be true. I go to a Black therapist. I was actually just at my therapist yesterday. So I do believe in, you know, finding who works for you.
That's right.
Necessarily have to be Black, or they have to be a man, or whatever it is, but somebody that is going to align with you and what your goals are and kind of help you work through yourself. But let's tell me a little bit more about like the practice of like therapy, because I think people a lot of times assume you have to be in crisis or wait till something happens and then you go see a therapist. I'm a firm believer of therapy should be almost like how you do preventative care.
Yes.
Same way you go to the dentist, same way you go to the doctor, you know, all that, get your eyes checked. Tell me about the preventative side or the proactive side.
Yeah, you just, hit the nail on the head. It's so key. And I think it's about how we change the language and how we look at the scope of what health in general is. But then when we're talking about the mental health side. So when you talk about dental, you're going every 6 months to get that routine cleaning, right? You got to keep your teeth nice and sharp. You got to keep them clean. You don't want to get anything with the gums and stuff like that. Not necessarily my field, but that's on the dental side. When you're talking about the medical side, you're going to see, hopefully, your doctor. If you don't have a doctor, y'all, get yourselves a doctor, a primary care health physician. Mm-hmm. You got to go see them, once a year or so for your annual checkups and stuff. Well, you're talking about mental health now. You're talking about the psychological impact of things, what's going on in the mind. And the way that we wake up in the morning is so much different than the way that we go to bed at night most of the time. And then there's everything in between. You need a professional who can help you process those things. And that's a daily thing. So if you are fortunate to have insurance, most of the times you can go see your therapist or counselor once a week, if you need to, sometimes twice a week, depending on how severe, those things get. But the preventative side of that, of mental health is so important. So, it depends on who you're connected with, how frequently you need to go. I always tell clients when they come see me, I don't see crazy people. I don't have anyone that's quote unquote crazy. I see people who are going through daily life stressors. Sometimes it's not even the stressful things of what's going on. Sometimes I see people who have a lot of positive things going on and they just want to outlet the way they can talk and vent and things about things that's going on. So, we need to do more of that. We need to dispel the myths and the rumors and stuff of, that you got to have something wrong with you to have a therapist or a counselor. That could be no further from the truth, so I encourage everyone to, participate and seek out therapy. So it can start with your insurance. There's some places out here that you can go that don't accept insurance. But just know that, like you said earlier, you have to find the right fit for you. So it may be somebody that looks like you. It may not. It may be someone in the same gender as you. It may be someone that's versed in the treatment style that you're looking for. So it just depends on that person and what they're looking for.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that's the piece that we talk about is, one, getting help and how important it is, and just talking about the preventative piece. Last year, I made this kind of commitment where I wanted to get 50 Black men into therapy. We're at like 4 right now.
Okay.
Which is, I was like, hey, that's still 4 people.
Absolutely.
The biggest thing that's come back to me is when you finally get somebody who's ready to get help or ready to, to partake in that journey, how do I find somebody? My insurance, just kind of navigating that connection to care space is a little bit difficult. Do you have any like insight or any tips or any suggestions on how somebody could go about finding a correct mental health professional or a therapist?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you have insurance, one of the easiest ways to do it is to contact your insurance provider. So if you're with Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, or something like that, typically they have what's called a directory. It may be publicized on their website. It may not. You may have to call the number on the back. You may have to ask them to email you. They'll do all those things, because when those of us that are in the mental health space, we get credentialed or paneled by those insurance providers, they ask us for our information. And sometimes they'll say that we no longer can take additional providers because they'll say an area is saturated. Mm-hmm. So they may say, hey, if you're in the zip code 43215, there's X amount of therapists that are already in that area. So it's saturated. So they have a list of people, and they have us by demographic, they have us by specialty, all those different things. So I tell clients or prospective clients, always check your insurance provider first. If you can't do that, not social media, but you can find them through social media. The internet is your friend. It can be. So places like Google, is not bad. But Psychology Today is a website that a lot of people need to go check out, because you can search for a counselor by their ethnicity, by a lot of different things. Now, I'll tell you this, Keyy Counseling is not on Psychology Today. No shame in Psychology Today. But when you've been around doing this for 14 years, we got our start in Psychology Today, and it's probably been maybe 7 years. I have not had to do any kind of advertising to that because people know who Keyy Counseling is. And so we get calls, emails every day, every week for folks wanting to get in. And again, that's not to say that we're the best, but I'm not going to stop anybody that believes that we're the best either. So you have to find who works for you. Now, you can also do this through the good old word of mouth. So pay attention to those things. If your friends, social media, the barbershop, the salon, they're talking about those, because we get a lot of referrals that way too. Now, I got to give this part to it as well, because unfortunately, those of us in this space, we hear this all the time. Y'all, please understand, if someone gives you a referral, even your doctor, you can go to your doctor, they gives you a referral. It's just that. It's a referral. That does not mean, because they will get on my head so much, well, I was referred here. Yes, you were referred here, but we don't have any openings right now, or you have to be on the list and everything. So a referral doesn't give you, carte blanche, as it pertains to mental health. So, but there's so many different places that you can go. My dentist keeps my marketing cards and stuff still. So you just got to look and pay attention, because, there's a lot of different places that can refer you or give you information on how to get counseling.
Yeah. And that's one of the main resources I use. I refer my counselor, if my therapist, sometimes if it makes sense, but I don't want every black man in Columbus, like you said, going to my therapist, because one, it may not be a good fit.
Yeah.
And two, I do want to kind of maintain some space sometimes in those different things.
That's
my
right.
personal therapist, as opposed to everybody having the same therapist. But they're probably not going to give us a paid advertisement for this. But Psychology Today really is good. That is actually how I found my therapist. And like Zeke was saying, you can search by whatever your concern is. You can search by gender. You can search by religious affiliation. You can search by ethnicity. All, if you want a spiritual practice, or if you want a holistic, like all those different things. Like, and it's a great website, Psychology Today. Go there. It will tell you which forms of insurance are accepted. But like Zeke said, that I didn't really even think about that. Just calling your insurance company and seeing who's in network.
That's right.
Is a great thing. And a lot of us have insurance and we're not using it. That's a good thing to use it for. I'm gonna start to close this out. Give me a couple things that you would say, for the person that is considering or contemplating, or kind of like in the middle ground. I'm gonna say this particularly for black men, because that's really what my focus is helping black men get connected to therapy. For the person that's a brother that's thinking about it, give them a couple things to think about, or suggestions on what they can do to kind of jump off that ledge. No pun intended.
Yeah. I'm right there with you in that space. Black men in general, as I go back a little bit to my PhD, it's specifically around men's issues. And I see quite a bit of men on the counseling aspect too. So you're not going to find, we can fight for this, two better champions of men for men's issues and things of that nature. So when we think about mental health and counseling for men, it really is a bit more taboo for them because it is a situation of, I'm not going to open up and share my innermost details, thoughts, ambitions to somebody else that I don't know. And even if I do know you, I don't know what you're going to do with it. So there's a part of the masculinity, which we will hear so much about, right? So masculinity doesn't have to be a bad word, right? But when we put toxic masculinity in it, then it becomes something different. So you'll see some men that are really concerned and they have to maintain this level of, I can't show feeling, I can't show emotion because people will use that against me. And there may have been a history of those things. So it's a myriad of things that tend to get in the way of, men not wanting to do counseling in general. But if we're thinking about men that are on the ledge, or not on the ledge, but on the cusp of like, well, maybe I should try counseling. What I would encourage them to do is definitely give it a chance, see, who is the best person for you. It may be another male. More times than not, that seems to work very well for the counselors that have come through Keyy Counseling that are male. We see quite a bit of male clientele. So I think that connection definitely has a lot to say. And we can have another conversation about that. But there's something about the homosociality of men together and wanting to have a deeper relationship and connection. And so when you find a therapist, you're going to develop that. Hopefully you're going to develop a deeper connection with someone that you think provides really good feedback and information. So you're going to make sure that you want to keep that and you want to maintain that. So I think for those on the cusp, see if you can find you a male that probably will lean in your favor better than anything else. Another piece that I mentioned a second ago was about the insurance piece. You said someone that's in network. Not everyone is going to be in your network. So, and you have to do your due diligence because the practices are going to do their due diligence in terms of verifying your information. So they're going to ask you for insurance if you have it. And insurance doesn't have to be a bad thing either. So if you have insurance and they verify, they can tell you, yes, you're in network. And there's two things, right? As I give education that I'm for you all, copay is what you would pay ahead of time. So if there's a copay, they'll let you know like, hey, you have a $10 copay, $20 copay, $30 copay. Now, I tell all my clients when they come through the door in that very first session, I can't tell you the frequency in which we're going to see each other. But, as we share, because we want to decide on it together, unless there's some severe issues that I think, you need to be seen weekly. So, but that means that's an investment. So are you going to be able to pay your $20 copay each time you come? And if you're coming weekly, you're looking at $80. So yeah, that's a utility bills for some people. But how important is your mental health? Mm-hmm. Again, I shared it is how you think, how you feel, how you act on a daily basis. And some people need to be seen weekly. Some people need to have that outlet in order to be their most effective self. In the grand scheme of that, $80 doesn't seem like a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So you do need to know about your in-network versus your out-of-network. And really quick, if it's out-of-network, it's going to be an out-of-pocket fee. Or you need to look at your benefits. That's why, again, we're all adults or we're becoming adults. And so when your insurances say, hey, it's time to make decisions if you want to keep the same plan for next year or not, you got to look at all those things. You got to look at all your benefits and see, what's what. Because some of us may be really healthy and it's like, what? I can deal with, a higher premium, a deductible this year going around because I haven't gone to the doctor very much. But as I get older, now I have to change the deductible and what that looks like. Those all seem to be really scary thoughts and scary words and stuff, but we're adults and we have to be immersed in those things because if we don't, we're going to find ourselves lost. So you need to know who's in network versus who's out of network. So those are a couple things, whatever. We could say so much more about what people need to be thinking about. But I think ideally, to say it one more time, it's about your fit. And really quick for me, I had to go through a few primary care physicians before I found the primary care physician for me. I started off with a black male, and that was okay until it wasn't okay. I went to an Asian male doctor. He was okay until he started getting too pill happy with different things. And then I found myself with a white male doctor. Didn't really work out well. And then I got with, a black sister, and it's been dream ever since. So I've been with her for 10 plus years. She has me right. She's a background in sports management. I won't give her information out, but I say all that, y'all, to say it takes time, it takes patience, and you just got to find the right fit. And so you got to be open to that, I think.
That's game. That's game. That was good. You led right into you answered my last question without even having to answer. So tell the people where they can find you, websites, drops. This is your time to promote yourself, your business, your people.
Oh, man. Listen, I appreciate that. I just appreciate the time that you have had with me today. I think a lot of people know who we are, not to be arrogant at all like that. We are appreciative of all the publication and all the feedback we get and hits and stuff like that. But our website is keycounseling.org, KeyCounseling.org. We are on the social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. I'm not really sure if we're on X or whatever, but we could be. Myself, Ezekiel Peebles, I'm on all different platforms as well. Definitely look me up on LinkedIn. That would probably be the best way to connect with me. But again, we're excited. 14 years, really great counselors. And I always do this too. So even if we can't help you, I have about a quick 5 other Black therapists practices that I send people to, because that's how the network grows and stuff. So again, Keyy Counseling isn't for everyone. I should also say that we are exclusively virtual right now. We started off brick and mortar, but after the pandemic, it taught us a whole lot. And so we no longer do in-person sessions at all, mainly because the folks didn't want the in-person sessions with us. And so I was paying rent for a space, and I had just renewed my lease for 5 years. And so that lease expired last May. And I said, you know what, looking at the totality, let's just stay virtual. And so there wasn't no need to continue to have the brick and mortar. So for us, we're exclusively virtual, but there are some places that are still in person as well. So, but yeah, you can catch us in all those medium platforms. Email is great. Work with us. If you call and we don't call you back, we do ask for 48 hours or so. So it's just a whole lot out there. But yeah, it's been great to be here with you.
Thank you, Zeke. That's it. That's all. Catch us on YouTube. Catch us on Instagram. Everything Ours Media, our podcast. We are out.